WWE back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin, Frazier, DKM, and J Cal.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. And with me tonight is my pal, my confidant, the man who holds the last really good-looking junior heavyweight championship. I'm talking about Mr. DKM. What's going on, DK?
Oh, absolutely everything and nothing all at the same time. Actually, there's quite a bit going on in the wrestling world, isn't there?
A lot of bit of news and information certainly happening. Of course, earlier today on the Alliance, we reported about the rumors of one Brody King potentially heading to AEW. Now, that's relevant because Brody King is a former NWA World Tag Team Champion. But, with all of the Ring of Honor releases, everyone is becoming a free agent who is associated with the brand. Don't really know what's going to happen with a lot of the talent that is now free from their Ring of Honor responsibilities. What do you think about a guy like Brody King heading to AEW? And do you think we're going to see more Ring of Honor guys in the NWA?
I don't know about more. It's actually got a humorous story. I watched the Final Battle pay-per-view, and just because it was kind of history in its own way. And at one point they were talking about, well, where do these people go? Where do these people go? They go AEW only has a couple of slots. WWE only has a couple of slots, and I don't know how much talent WWE is actually looking to bring in from other places anymore.
That's true.
Now that they have nil.
Next in line,
nil. Nada, nothing, zero.
Zip.
Anyway. And they go MLW, they only got so many places or whatever. And so I kind of giggled because the one place they never mentioned at all was the NWA. So, but I hate to say it like this. I expect we'll see most of the top guys in AEW, some of the top to middle guys in Impact, and then the rest will just be working the indies and, maybe make appearances for MLW. And, MLW is kind of interesting. They'll use the term that they've signed somebody when they basically booked them for 2 or 3 matches, if even that many. Because even Slice Boogie acknowledged that after he had been signed, he actually didn't sign a contract until just before they won the titles. So, Billy Corgan, I believe, has said that, they plan on using Taven and Bennett. So I would hope we see some of the women's division in there, with the exception of Angelina Love, who I do not like. And
you're going to upset Bobby. Bobby just asked for Angelina Love and Mandy Leon to show up in the NWA.
So I don't know. We'll see how that all goes. But so we got that breaking down, and Brody Lee, since he and Malachi Black are tag team champions somewhere out there by you, aren't they?
Yeah, the Pro Wrestling Guerrilla tag team champions of the world.
So it wouldn't surprise me at all for him to be there, and I guess I haven't watched last night's AEW. I recorded and only watched the matches I want to. But I guess there was something that referenced Malachi Black said that referenced a king or something like that. So, we'll see.
Well, I mean, look, Brody King is the kind of guy that fits right into the AEW aesthetic. I think he would fit in with that roster. Hell, he wrestled with most of those guys on the independents before AEW was formed. So it seems kind of fitting. And he's, again, one of these guys from the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy out here in Southern California that just seem to produce a lot of great talent. And Brody King is just one of many who have been signed over the last 2 years. First to Ring of Honor, now to AEW. And I think that just speaks to the testament of what our pal Joey Chaos is doing out there at the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the talent that's available, I think AEW is certainly going to look at some of the top names, guys like, whether we want to admit it or not, I think the Briscoes are a team that could certainly benefit in the AEW environment. A lot of the luchadores, I think, will end up either working with AEW or some sort of like a split program between AEW and some of the lucha promotions at home. With Tony Khan's contract set up, the way that they basically allow some of their wrestlers to work both New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW, I think it's really going to add some value to the people signing with AEW, so they can go work sometimes in Japan or Mexico and be off of the regular TV. And when a character, needs to be freshened up, maybe they go to Japan for a few months or Mexico for a few months or both before they come back to AEW. But at the very least, it's still a pretty exciting time when a lot more of these WWE releases are going to be no longer under compete clause, easy for me to say. And you're going to see some talent from the WWE available, talent from Ring of Honor available, and of course, the menagerie of independent talent that's out there. And then the NWA is at a kind of like a crossroads right now, because it feels like they're making those next few steps to get bigger and bigger. And what we're going to see is some NWA originals are going to start getting lost in the shuffle. And I know there's a lot of talent that's in the NWA currently that have become, fan favorites, like the Mims or Jordan Clearwater, or somebody like Marche Rocket. But I just feel like there'll be less of a spotlight on guys like that when, you can bring in the Matt Tavens of the world, or the Michael Bennett's of the world, or the, Nick Cordona's of the world. What's his name? I totally drew a blank on
Cardona?
Yeah, what's his name?
Matt Cardona?
Matt. Why did I want to call him Nick? I don't know. Okay, yeah. So I just feel like there's with
you're
more
obsessed
of
with
these.
Mickey James, or you're obsessed with Mick Foley? I don't know which.
No, Nick, like Nick Aldis, and we all know how much I'm obsessed with him. So
yes, you hate him passionately.
I don't hate him.
Well, no, but that's what everybody else thinks, and since that's what everybody else thinks,
perception is reality. Moving along, I did want to take a minute on this podcast, and we spoke about it on the pre-party, but I wanted to hear DK's take on it. Over the weekend, we learned of the passing of Jimmy Rave, who was a two-time NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, a two-time NWA Wildside Junior Heavyweight Champion, and somebody who was used by the NWA as kind of like a utility player. There were multiple times where they brought Jimmy Rave in to challenge for the 10 pounds of gold, famously against AJ Styles in CZW, but then again, many years later with the NWA Ohio State Fair show with Sean Tempers and Chance Prophet and Adam Pearce when they were deciding the vacancy of the 10 pounds of gold when the Sheik forfeited the title. And, and besides being a tag team wrestler when they needed him to be, a junior heavyweight wrestler when they needed him to be, or just a regular, not regular, but a heavyweight wrestler within the NWA. He kind of fit a lot of gaps in between working with NWA Wildside, working with NWA Anarchy, and even later NWA Atlanta under the Bruce Tharp era. I mean, he was a guy who had some longevity with the National Wrestling Alliance. And DK, what were your thoughts on Jimmy Rave, and what did you think, or how do you feel about his passing?
Well, I think his passing is obviously very sad. He was so young. And the last couple of years, he's suffered quite a bit. And, he ended up having one of the arms amputated, legs amputated, the whole Anakin Skywalker thing going there. And it's a shame. And I didn't agree with them using him to give Pierce his title after the Sheik was stripped, because in a way that was almost disrespectful. It's like they had a former champion, their North American champion, their national champion. Like, okay, we're not going to beat any of these guys, so we need somebody to beat. So they forced him in at the last minute. Literally, he came out and demanded to be inserted into the match, and they inserted him, which one was just things that drive him crazy in wrestling. Apparently, it's like comes across as, oh, that's all I got to do. But, somebody who had been
never change.
Yeah. But for somebody who had been such a utility player for him and done such a good job for him, I just didn't feel like that was right to bring him in just to take the loss. He never hit the big time, but he was certainly around, the independents, and he was there. And I think that this is a good example of why I think a lot of people get offended when you start calling wrestling fake, as opposed to, worked or even scripted or predetermined or whatever. Is these guys put their body on the line more than, most professional athletes as far as impact is concerned. And there's no wrestling season, not like baseball or football or basketball or any of those things where, you only do it so many months out of the year. Not like boxing or MMA where, you're considered a busy fighter if you have 3 fights in a year. These are people who, these days put their body on the line anywhere from 8 to 15 times in a given month. And unfortunately, unlike in the past, where they would work a lot of things and maybe you would get sore, these guys are doing ridiculous things where they're taking actually a lot more physical abuse than wrestlers of the past.
Yeah.
And it's tearing them down, it's tearing them apart. And a lot of them, stay in longer than they should. And, this is what happens. Their body breaks down. We hear about all these people in wrestling who die. And yes, some of them are drug related, but some of them are just because their bodies are completely worn out. And part of the reason that, and there's a mix between the two, or some of the reasons they're on drugs is because they're in so much misery and discomfort all the time.
Yeah.
And they self-medicate. And it's, I'm sure when Mr. Frazier comes back, you'll have some things to say just about that. And it's just a very sad and depressing thing when you really look at it. And we probably don't give these people enough appreciation for all they do. On the side, there are probably some that shouldn't be doing it. And they certainly should be doing it smarter. And so, let him be a lesson for a lot of people that, let's face it, his death was caused by wrestling.
Yeah.
When you get down to it.
The toll it takes on the body, like just the physical body, you're putting yourself at risk. You do become more susceptible to infection. You're more susceptible to sickness because you're never 100%. And as much as we enjoy wrestling, and I've spent most of my adult life watching pro wrestling. I think DKM has done the same. We watched it when we were kids, so like we know that it is entertainment for us, but it's life and death for the men and women who step into the ring. And you're right, his passing shouldn't fall on deaf ears. I hope people will pay attention to this. The other thing that as a me to you, as our viewer right now, I just want to say, don't wait until somebody's gone to tell them how much you appreciated them. And I say that with a little bit of a laugh, but a little bit of sadness, because I saw all these tributes to Jimmy Rave after his passing. But, I didn't see very many people going out there and supporting him after he had those amputations. I didn't see those same kind of comments when he announced his retirement from pro wrestling. And I just feel like they waited too long to tell him how much they cared about them. And when we live in a world with a mental health stigma, especially for men, I just feel like if you appreciate someone, you should probably let them know sooner than later, because we never know what could happen. And you know what, Sean Mega, I really appreciate you saying that. He appreciates the Alliance guys, and Sean, we appreciate you. We appreciate everyone who comes here to the Alliance blog every Thursday nights, or you join me with the pre-party on Tuesdays. But we're here to talk NWA, and I did want to spend a few moments talking about the life of Mr. Jimmy Rave. And we did want to talk a little bit about the rumors that are happening in the NWA. But
before we do that, I want to segue this Jimmy Rave into the incident that happened here in Texas. I feel like we need to talk about that.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
So, talking about abuse, some moron who shares the same sound as my first name spells it differently.
Sure.
It goes by Hannibal, or as a very boring YouTube host, or a blood hunter or something like that under a masked wrestler. A small background on the guy for those that don't know. He spent about 2 minutes in WWE training before they kicked him out. He claimed part of the reason they kicked him out was because during the physicals they found out he had Hep C. He blamed Abdullah the Butcher for it, sued Abdullah the Butcher, supposedly won $2.5 million or something like that in the Ward case. That, of course, Abdullah never ever paid, and has passed since, and guy will never see it. He can't get booked on shows. So the way he typically would get on a show was he would contact promoters and say, I'll come down there for free. I'll bring my opponent and I'll pay for him. I'll bring my own manager and I'll pay them. I just need stuff for my YouTube channel. I need content. And so he bought his way onto shows. He had a horrible reputation. Several girls had accused him of behaving inappropriately. Several guys had accused him of not being in any condition to perform. What was her name from MLW? Selena De La Renta?
Yeah.
Something like that. He had paid her to be his manager when he worked in SWE, and then booked a spot where he put his opponent on a table and put her through the table on he powerbombed her onto the opponent, through the table. And she ended up with a lot of blood on a very expensive dress, because she did not know that apparently this was going to be happening when she, her gimmick was this very stylish woman.
Sure.
And so several promotions have kicked him out. Although he wrestled here in Texas, he's not Texan. He comes in from Canada. And he basically would segregate himself from everybody, because he'd bring his RV down with his girlfriend and whatever people he was bringing in. And so he busted somebody open at SCW with a hard chair shot to the head. And this is one of those cases where until something goes viral, idiot promoters will continue to book people.
Yeah.
Or continue to take the lesson. The promoter that did this one, Bastic, he goes basically like, well, my interactions with him have been good. He goes, so basically saying that he chose to ignore all the bad stories about him because his interactions have been good. Well, look, I've had good interactions with people who are total assholes. I knew they were total assholes. And I would never call them friends, and I'd never trust them for anything, and I sure as hell wouldn't book them on a show. But
a couple of guys like that here in SoCal.
Yeah. And so, to make a long story as short as I can, since I've already blabbered so long, he had a match on what's now World Class Pro Wrestling, which used to be World Class Wrestling Revolution, which used to be Imperial Revolution Wrestling. And he had a match with Carlito. He was drunk, barely made it to the ring. He brought his own referee, because here's the thing: Carlito wasn't gonna do two things. He wasn't gonna lose, and he wasn't gonna bleed. So he needed someone to bleed. So he was gonna attack the ref. And so he brought in a guy who does some independent refereeing. He paid him. Everybody knew that he was supposed to attack him, that he was supposed to bleed. The ref had a gimmick, a razor to blade. And because he hadn't really done this or done it enough or whatever, he wasn't cutting deep enough. He was scratching himself, not actually cutting himself. And so apparently this drunk imbecile in the ring choked him out and then hit him with a spike that he claimed somebody else had given him. And several times put huge gashes in his head. The pictures are on our Discord server and other places, so you can read all the testaments about what happened. That no, this wasn't just a work. A lot of morons out there that just like, it's a work. No, you don't get your head that busted up in work. No, and so hopefully now this has gone enough. This has been viral enough. This guy will never do anything ever again. He put up a video basically saying he quit before he got fired. Although why would he quit? Because he was the idiot that did all the stuff wrong. And then he had to take it down because he was getting so much backlash. So hopefully he's done in the wrestling business. Nobody here support him, or I'll personally come hunt you down and hit you in the head with a spike. And that's all the attention it deserves. That's all the attention I'm going to give it. If you have any thoughts, feel free to share.
For everything that happens in wrestling, somehow, some way, the slime balls still survive. I mean, you and I know of plenty of people who still end up working when you and I both know they shouldn't. Sean Mega says, I hope he never gets booked again, but wrestling is full of shitty promoters. And that's exactly what I was going to say. There's a lot of people out there who would love to have this guy on the show and all the chaos that he brings with it. You know, Rob Black is promoting XPW again, and I wouldn't be surprised if Blood Hunter shows up there, just because Rob Black is one of these promoters who really does not give a crap about cancel culture, doesn't care about the snowflakes, if you will, and is very much about just promoting the best wrestling he can, and in a lot of ways, in his mind, wrestling that I don't consider very good, with the death matches and all that stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if he works again, but hopefully you who are watching this will vote with your money, will speak with your hard-earned cash, and won't support the promotions that support filth like this human being. Sean Mega just said, look, Marty was just booked in Puerto Rico. Yeah, and apparently Joey Ryan is going to be wrestling again, I guess. But, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to support it. You don't even have to acknowledge it. And with that being said,
crap like this is why sometimes I support wrestling being regulated by state athletic commissions again. Because right now, any prick can go rent a ring, buy a ring, whatever, set it up in a barn and hold wrestling shows.
Yep.
With their friends.
Yep.
Charge and stuff like that. And it's just this is the crap that's ruining wrestling. And what gets me is that it draws 5 people. And if you're lucky, 7. And then there's some asshole somewhere that wants to copy it.
Mm-hmm.
You lose your freaking ass, but there's always somebody that thinks that, oh, yeah, this is successful. And speaking of stupid idiots, we'll talk about some of them later too. But
well, and to the point that you're making right now, not only does it dilutes the talent pool because you're putting people on a spotlight or in a place that they shouldn't be. I mean, look, there's 2 sides to the show, right? There's the show that's going on inside the ring, and then there's the section where the fans are supposed to be at. And I think we should take more of those fans who think they're wrestlers and put them back in the fan section. And let's leave the wrestling to the professionals who have trained, who've developed, who've honed their craft. Because like DK said, hey, I have money. I could go buy a ring. I could go to my local elementary school and I could put on a wrestling show. I guarantee you I wouldn't use the garbage that's out there, but there's a lot of people who are. And what that does is when you don't know the business and you try to just do it, whether you're a wrestler or a promoter, you make it harder for everyone else who's doing it the right way, trying to earn a living the right way. And it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't think that I agree with you, DK. I think there should be some more regulation. And that's someone who at some point in my life, I wanted to be a pro wrestling promoter. I go back and forth with that idea on a daily basis. But when you see stuff like this happen, it just makes you glad that you're not, to be perfectly honest, it makes you glad that you're not involved with the wrestling business, because it's just so, it's icky sometimes. But, let's talk about wrestling. Let's talk about pro wrestling. Let's talk about the oldest sanctioning body in professional wrestling for over 73 years, the National Wrestling Alliance, with its weekly television show, POWERRR, which has been, I like your fluffy fingers, which has been back since March of 2021. They did take that pandemic pause. They've been getting back after it. We've had a few pay-per-views, When Our Shadows Fall, Back for the Attack, the NWA 73rd anniversary, Empower, and most recently Hard Times #2. And we're now on the 7th season of Power. So the NWA is back at it. They're set to introduce a new program that'll be hitting the airwaves on Saturdays, starting in January, on January the 8th, on YouTube of all places. And that's going to be NWA USA, which they're supposed to be focusing more on the junior heavyweight division, apparently, and
national.
And the national championship, which I think is good for the NWA, because Lord knows that national championship hasn't had much of a spotlight on Power. So things are starting to progress in a positive fashion for the NWA. We're coming off of last week's episode where DK and I were both very happy with that episode, and it was solid. And then this week happened. DK, why don't you set us off? Tell us what happened this week on NWA Power.
I went to the restroom a lot. I'll say this about last week, because some people who maybe are remembering last week's review may be like, what do they mean? You guys hated it. And I said during the thing, I go, it was a show I enjoyed when I watched it. It's when I had to sit down and talk about it and think about what made sense and what didn't, that you started getting frustrated.
Yeah.
But the overall, just watching the show, I enjoyed it. This week, I did not. And in fact, I didn't even come close. And so, if you'll give me a little leeway, yeah,
I will.
We'll talk about the fact that it ran an hour and 8 minutes or thereabouts. So they had been running anywhere from 40 to 50. So it was a little bit longer.
Can I spoil how many minutes were for wrestling?
You can spoil it.
20 minutes and 20 seconds. That's it.
And so, yeah, they didn't add any wrestling to it, really. They just added more talking to it because Billy, I guess, loves them to talk. And so here are all the talking segments that were in it. We won't necessarily go through them right now, but these were the ones that were in it. Trevor Murdoch talking about Mike Knox and Matt Cardona. Tom Lavmere and Strictly Business talking. Sal Renaro interrupting James Mitchell and Judias. That was all before we had our first match. More James Mitchell, Sal Renaro, and craziness. Melina in a sit-down thing. The end talking and bringing out a third member to their team, and we'll talk about that also. Natalia Markova not cutting a promo. I don't know what the hell that was. Idol Mania Sports Management, I believe, is currently the name of the thing, which now has a subdivision because they got the short guy name tag that nobody could read, and making him a junior executive. I guess to go with the junior heavyweight title. I don't know. And Billy Corgan came out and talked. I think he stammered. Yeah. He stammered and sputtered and sort of talked. Matt Cardona came out with Mike Knox, and they talked. And Mims came out, and he talked longer than the match he was in. And that was all the talking segments. And there were, 4 matches? 3 or 4?
3 matches.
1, 2, 3. So 3. So 3 matches and all those talking segments. And I was ready to, hang myself at the end of all. And even the matches didn't make a whole lot of sense to me and where they were done. But, let's go ahead and start off. So they start off before the show technically kicks off. And they start off with an interview with our world heavyweight wrestling champion, Trevor Murdoch, as he talked about Mike Knox and Matt Cardona. And, it was good. I mean, it was what it was. He did what he was supposed to do.
It wasn't much different than the promo that he did last week, though, too.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that part up, but no.
Okay.
It wasn't. It was what it was. So then they bring out Strictly Business, and they do, what's his name? Short ball guy. Yeah, Kyle.
Kyle's a friend of the show, man. Let's cut him some slack.
All right. We love Kyle.
We do
we
love
hate
Kyle.
we hate the way Kyle is booked, just the way we that's the way our book.
That's fair. That's fair.
And so anyway, so Kyle does the same thing that May Valentine did last week. And you won, and you won, and you lost. So then we got to hear Tom Latimer talk more than I wanted to hear him talk. And he suddenly declared it's not over with all this, although that was kind of strange because last week it seemed to be very over between them. And so he got to call, Doug Williams an old fart. So
He likes calling people old farts.
So I guess in AEW they can say shit, 28 times, and in NWA we can say old fart, at least 3. So unfortunately didn't do anything to help endear him to me one way or the other, because it was just like, I don't know where you guys are going with this, because last week it came across like, okay, you guys are done. Now this week you're saying you're not done. So, and Tommy, you have a complex. And by the way, we all like your wife better than you.
Yeah. And if Kevin was here right now, Kevin is still rehabilitating, guys. We'll talk about all that in the new year with Kevin when he comes back. But he loves Tom Latimer, and even he would say that where they're going with him is a little puzzling at the moment, because he's one of the most polished wrestlers on the roster. He's got a great look. He usually excels at promos. I just don't know the direction that they're going with this. And again, it's like, for the NWA, I think booking wise, the right decision would have been Tom Latimer taking the W at Hard Times too. Instead, he lost. And there seems like now it just, maybe he is the dead weight in the Strictly Business team. And instead of moving on and perhaps maybe pursuing Tyrus with the TV title, or either that or getting Adonis reinvigorated to go after those tag team titles, he's talking about a feud that's basically already over. He already lost. You lost the match. The feud should be over. You should be moving on. And yet he's still clamoring for his day in the sun with Nick Aldis. And I just felt like this was repetitive from the week prior with the way they presented it. And then you're not making Tom Latimer look like a viable threat to the 10 pounds of gold with a promo like that.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't do any good with him going, well, I'm the one that beat him up. He had to walk out with assistance. I walked out fine. Okay, so this beat up guy pins you.
Yeah.
That helps. Again, I don't understand NWA booking decisions, because they come from the mind of a artistic musician who spent way too much time in TNA.
That's probably more accurate than we want to admit. So let's move on. We have this segment, we go to the next segment, and then here's our third segment.
Yeah, here's our third segment, which is James Mitchell and Judas, with James Mitchell coming out and claiming that the full Nelson is an illegal choke. Dude, what crack are you on?
Well, in his defense, he did what a manager is supposed to do and invalidate the results, invalidate the opponent. It was a sham. It was a farce. There was conspiracy, all that stuff. I don't hate that part, but it certainly got worse from there.
Well, but that only works if you feel like they're skirting right up against something.
Sure.
I mean, when you're going, it's a choke. Man, it don't come anywhere near his throat. If it was a sleeper,
yeah.
If you put a sleeper hold on him and they go, well, that was a choke, not a sleeper, or it was a rear naked choke or something like that, people, apparently chokes are now legal in wrestling because, they're in MMA, so people use them all the time.
Right.
They even call them chokes now, even though choking's illegal in pro wrestling. So anyway, so James Mitchell's out there instead of being retired where he needs to be. And Judas is out there and not looking intimidating at all, unfortunately. And then this stoned unicorn comes out. This guy that looks like he hasn't slept for 5 days. His hair is a bigger mess than it normally is. You know, that bald spot, man, he needs to be in a hair versus hair match and lose. And his little side braid and his unicorn horn and whatever starts talking about darkness. And I got up and peed because I just could not care about this any less if I were being paid money. And so I don't know. I saw that Danny Deals, another person who needs to retire from wrestling, came out, but I don't know what happened. What happened with Danny Deals?
Okay. Let me jump in because I know you did go to the bathroom. I did watch this segment, and I literally rewound my. I was watching it on my phone. I literally rewound this show because it's like, did I miss a match? Have I literally been watching about 15 minutes of promos here? And in fact, I did. And as I'm looking at this promo, this segment, this sketch, I mean, I don't know what you want to call it. First of all, you're taking a character who is beloved by the fans in Atlanta. Does he translate in Tennessee? I don't know. Does he translate in Kentucky? I don't know. But he's loved in Atlanta. So let's start there. You're taking one of the very few faces you have in the company and you put him in this just embarrassing situation. And all of a sudden, the professional wrestling company that's been in existence for 73 years, that's stood for history, tradition, and legacy, has been turned into a soft-core WWE 1990s gimmick-infused wrestling promotion. I get that you want to have Judas be this dark warrior, this dark fighter. That's pretty much been his gimmick since he was at Wildside. I get that you want to use the Sinister Minister to be the voice of this gigantic dark guy. But bringing your pal Sal, one of the most likable characters for many in the NWA, into this heel role, an acolyte of Judas. I mean, it's stupid. This is Vince Russo bullshit. This is the worst thing that the NWA has done since they've been promoting. Since Billy Corgan has been in charge of the NWA, this was just the absolute stupidest, worst piece of crap I've ever seen. And I don't know if I can get any more direct than that. I kept thinking to myself, is this like, is he there to turn around and, is Sal going to punch Judas? Are they going to start swinging? No, he took a choke slam. And then Drake blood? Come on, man. I mean, the one thing about wrestling is there's this unspoken agreement that you tell us what the show is and we're just going to buy into it. And you could go so far before you start insulting our intelligence and making us not want to be fans. And tonight or Tuesday night, that was it for me. I felt like I was being played for a sucker.
And this wasn't even the worst part yet.
Yeah, that's true.
So if we move on to the next thing after 3 promo-filled things that weren't really that good, we get our first wrestling match. And I found this to be an interesting choice. You had Aaron Stevens, the once again resurrected cocky heel Aaron Stevens.
Yactor!
With Kratos, or however Stevens pronounces it.
Kratos.
And the wrestling one of the worst tag team names on the planet. I like Slice Boogie better. We all know my feelings on the name Slice Boogie. But the Dirty Sexy Boys, which is JTG, and Dirty Dango. And if I ever have to hear Velvet Sky talk about Dango's hips again, I'm going to drive to wherever the next taping is, and I'm going to throw up in her lap.
Well, in her defense, she's recently single, so
You know, she's a good-looking woman. There are plenty of guys out there that would be willing to keep her company.
just not Bully Ray.
Just not Bully Ray. And we should make fun of people's love lives, but I'm going to anyway. Now, I found this match interesting on two levels. One, I have no idea who the heels and faces are supposed to be, because even though there's still a heel, the rebirth of the heel Stevens, and although the commentary desk is putting them over as heels, I actually like them. I like them better like this than I ever did before. So, I mean, for me, this is like the first time I'm enjoying watching Stevens and Klepto's work. And I enjoy comedy heel Stevens, and I enjoy that when he wrestles, he tends to wrestle very brutally.
Yeah, very
so
stiff.
Here we go again. We're going to take a match that if you just isolate the match itself, take everything else out, and you just isolate the match itself, I basically enjoyed it. Wasn't too thrilled with Stevens going to the podium and talking there through the end of it. But then we have JTG and Dango, and they're wrestling, and, you know, we just saw them together as a team for the first time coming out after the end of the World Tag Team Champions, which, by the way, where are they?
Oh, yeah.
Have they been on? Yeah, I mean, have they been on either of the two shows?
No, and there's partially a reason for that, because they started taping the Friday before the pay-per-view, and they were wrestling at the Crash in Tijuana that first Friday night. So they missed out on however many hours were taped during that Friday night. And then when they came in on the they came in on Saturday for the pay-per-view. And then I'm assuming they were there for the rest of the tapings, but I know that they they're basically bouncing. Those guys, I mean, without sounding too desperate, the NWA is lucky to have a team like the La Rebellion, because although maybe they're not booked, in some of the most famous American wrestling promotions, those guys are constantly working in Puerto Rico and Mexico, and they in the past have worked internationally. And I think that if given the right circumstances, and if the NWA can book it correctly, they really have a solid tag team as tag team champions. And but no, they weren't on television on the first two episodes.
Okay, I didn't think they were, but it was just
there's a reason for it. That's not like a booking thing. It's just they were already booked elsewhere.
Hey, do you remember in the old days when you were taping things 10 years in advance? Oh, wait a minute, that didn't really happen. But if they were, and they were taping on multiple days, remember how you could do a backstage segment with the team and insert it into the show and do spoilers? Oh, wait a minute, that was the
then okay. Well, in that case, they were there on the first episode because they were in the back with Team Hex and Homicide. You blocked that out. You blocked that out.
I did. That was because once Homicide didn't know how to say anything, it just I just lost that. So yes, you are right. They were there. So that is a positive. Not the Homicide part, but the fact that they were there. Okay, I feel better now. So anyway, so they have this match that looked like they were trying to position G and Dango as top contenders for the World Tag Team Championship. And their very first match together as a team, and they lose. And they lost with one of the members of the tag team not even in the ring or by the ring. And I will say Kratos looked better than he normally does in an NWA show.
Yeah.
Not as good as he does on other promotions, but as good as he has in an NWA ring. And, I don't know. It was just kind of like, well, that was a buzzkill, wasn't it? Because,
Yeah.
you just beat the team that you're trying to parlay us into being something. And, I know Kevin and others saying like, oh, we want competitive matches. And yeah, there should be one or two competitive matches on a show, but when you're trying, Stevens and Kratos have been World Tag Team Champions. So we don't necessarily need to see them as much, and we don't need to see them in as many competitive matches. But the DSB, as someone calls them,
Galley,
I really like you as a person, but please stop. And it's just, they should be out there wrestling every week against enhancement talent and winning.
Yeah.
If that's what we need to see, we need to see them win. We need to go, okay, yes, these are credible people.
Can I interject?
No, if you really have to, you can.
I will say this, that I agree with you that, in my opinion, the wrong team won. If you're going to push the DSBs as a legitimate threat to the tag team champions, they shouldn't be losing. And let's be honest, Stevens is still going through this transitional period where he went from face to heel, or went from heel to face, and now face to heel. If they lost, it doesn't really hurt their reputation of Kratos and Stevens, much like losing to Matt Taven and Mike Bennett didn't hurt their reputation of Stevens and Kratos. And this would give you time to further develop this schizophrenic Stevens, where he goes from, hugging babies and shaking hands to kicking dogs. I mean, this transition that he's been going through, you could have allowed that to play out more on TV, and which would have made perfect sense. But furthermore, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, maybe we could use Dirty Dango and JTG maybe as singles competitors, considering we now have we're going to give more time to the national championship, which has had almost zero, and you have a television championship that something should happen with. That TV title, when Pope was wearing it, was defended quite regularly. And if it wasn't the main event, or if it wasn't defended on an episode, there was time on that episode dedicated to making a new contender for the TV title. And that's been lacking since Pope lost the championship. And now the names that are coming out to fight the Pope, fight Tyrus, are the same guys that have been associated with Tyrus since he stepped into the ring. It's the Pope, it's Scion, it's Black G's, it's Jordan Clearwater. He hasn't had a match outside of that circle. So I just this match shouldn't have happened. If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna push the Dirty Sexy Boys as a tag team, then yeah, they should have went over. If you're not gonna push them as a tag team, which this should have been a one-on-one match. They should have fought each other for a right to face Tyrus next week on Power.
And look, they only needed one small change for everything still to work out.
Yeah.
They could have put the Dirty Sexy Boys over.
Yep.
And then Stevens could have snapped and beat the crap out of both of them, him, Kratos, afterwards.
Yep.
And got their heat back.
Yep.
So that simple. Instead, now it's just like, what? And if you feel like we're talking about this match way too long, the reason is because I don't really want to talk about the next segment. But I guess we need to. The next segment is when I got up to use the restroom a second time, even though I did need to pee, but it was much more enjoyable than actually watching the last time. So I saw James Mitchell do a test of loyalty for Sal Rinauro in the ring. And once he started barking, I left. And so this is the description I found on the internet. So I'll read it, Jay, and then you can comment on it if you watched it. All right. James Mitchell tested the loyalty of Sal Rinauro by having him bark like a dog, kiss boots, take a choke slam, and drink blood. And I saw the picture of the stoned out unicorn on the floor with red stuff all over him. And I was told by somebody else that apparently the cup of blood was just magically in the podium.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Just kind of like there's always all that stuff under the ring that, is needed. So, obviously, I did not watch this past the barking dog. So, what happened, Jay, and why?
I mean, so last night I was on a sleigh ride in the middle of the woods in Colorado where a cabin was there. And if you needed to use the restroom, there was a legitimate outhouse. Now, they made it very modern by putting a heater in the outhouse and running electricity. There was even a sink that had real running water, but it was still, in a traditional sense, an outhouse. And, when I went to lift up the lid to where you sit, I smelt generations of outhouse uses. And that was better than this segment that we watched last Tuesday, or this Tuesday.
You're going to kill me, Jay.
I don't get it. I mean, again, the gimmickry, the shit cannery, if you will, of a podium holding the magic blood, of warriors, of demon, whatever. It's stupid. It's just flat out stupid. And I want to like James Mitchell because I think he cuts a good promo. I want to like Judas because I've known of Judas for many, many years. I want to see something interesting with this angle, but this isn't that. And even on my phone while I was watching this thing, I fast forward through a lot of this whole part because I just thought it was stupid. I ended up watching once he hit the choke slam, and I thought, okay, he showed his loyalty. It's great. And then the whole corn syrup with grape juice thing that he let it spill out on his chest and had seizures ringside. Like, look, this is stupid. This doesn't sell tickets. This doesn't make me want to watch a Judas match. It doesn't make me want to watch a Sal Rinauro match. It doesn't move the needle. It's stupid. And this is the kind of stuff that Billy Corgan needs to write in his fanfic novels and keep out of the NWA because it just doesn't make sense.
And this is where I want to bring up something. We were talking about the incident earlier with the idiot Canadian down in Texas. And I was listening to Jim Cornette talk about it earlier today. And he used a phrase that I like, and I'm going to start asking myself after all these segments, is, did that make me want to buy a ticket? And, he was saying, a big wrestler busting a referee and making him bleed. Assuming that everything had gone as planned and had been a total work. Was there anything in there that would make me say, oh, that was cool, I want to buy a ticket to the next show? And so the whole Sal Rinauro, James Mitchell, Judas thing, if I would ask myself the question, does this make me want to buy a ticket to the next show? It actually makes me go, this makes me want to avoid the next show. Because then I'd be in the arena and trapped.
That's right.
It's like, I don't think I'd want to do that. And so, so they follow this up by, after that pointless, horrible, makes everybody look bad, stupid, and ridiculous act, by having a, what's it called, heart-to-heart? Is that what you told me?
Yeah, heart-to-heart. And this is where May kind of took off earlier in the Power seasons, where our pal Kevin really put her over. Again, this was not that, but go ahead. Real quick, before we get to the next segment, I just want to point out what James H. Jackson Jr. said, which kind of echoed what you said. he doesn't know if he even wants to renew his subscription based on that segment. And yeah. And I mean, look, he said it twice. After that segment happened, I honestly feel I won't renew my subscription. I honestly don't know if I'm going to renew my subscription. And James, brother, I am right there with you. We've said that multiple times on this show that, part of the reason why we keep subscribed to this show is because we like talking about it with you guys, because we like to try to break it down and give you real, some context with all of this. But there's no way to make context out of this. There's the old saying, making chicken salad out of chicken shit. But I can't do that with this. There's nothing redeemable about this segment. In fact, I sent a picture, I screenshotted that and sent it to a picture of someone who I know, who knows someone, who knows someone, who knows someone, who knows someone in the NWA. And I hope that they push that through and somebody important sees that. Because at this point in time, my God, you're driving your audience away with shit cannery. Okay, I'm done. Go ahead, DK.
I'll point out that Terry McDermott goes, why would Sal do this to his career? He must have real life issues. And it's just like, I guess it's just, I don't get it. I've already, unlike the people of Atlanta, any love I had for Sal has already gone away a long time ago because of how they use them and book them and stuff like that. And the little dog is trying to break down my door. And God, Melina, heart to heart. Melina doesn't hate Camille. Melina's proud of Camille. Melina thinks that losing is a good thing because that's how you learn. Melina was full of love and forgiveness and praise, and she wants another title match. And you lost clean, and you worked as a heel the entire time. And I don't know if you're being facetious now, or you're stoned, or I think that maybe Billy brought some of his Primo stuff. You know what I mean there, boy? And they were all partaking. I don't know what this was. I did not enjoy it. It wasn't Meg's fault that I didn't enjoy it, but I did not enjoy it. And I didn't get it. And it was another one of those things where, my new thing, would this cause me, would I buy a ticket based on what I just saw? No. I wouldn't run the other direction, but, there was certainly nothing that made me think, oh, man, I need to see this. I really want to see Camille Melina too.
Now, run it back, right? Run it back last week's episode of the Alliance Guys podcast. And I had a very glowing and positive things to say about Melina because she really dug down deep. She put in the work and she had a really good match with Camille. Great stuff. Great stuff. This promo, again, just kind of fell flat. I don't understand where it was going. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I get PMA. I'm all about the positive mental attitude. You guys see me tweet on social media. I'm usually more positive than negative, and I like to look for the positive things in life. I didn't see any positive with this promo. You lose, you get better, right? You don't lose. You either win or you get better. I get that. I totally get that personality, that mantra, and I get having respect for the woman that beat you. I get that, but just the rambling, just the incoherency. Again, this is the stuff that tighten it up. If Melina can give you 2 minutes of a decent promo, then give us 2 minutes of a decent promo. Because like DKM said, this does not sell me on a match. It doesn't get me intrigued to see what's next for Melina and Camille. This is more like just hurry up and get to the next match.
And the craziest thing about this, as Kevin says multiple times, these things are shot and can be reshot and can be looked at and watched and say, no, let's do it again. Let's try it. People are watching this and going, okay, stick it here.
Can I tell an old story from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood?
You can tell as many old stories from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood as you want, as long as it's just one.
Okay. So when Percy Pringle was working for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, that was also the same era that Adam Pearce was world's heavyweight champion. Austin Aries was working there. You had a lot of big names now in the industry who were working there. Scorpio Sky, Willie Mack. It was a pretty good roster, had a lot of good talent. And in the back, not only was Percy Pringle back there, but also one of the announcers, Stu Stone, who has since gone on to make a lot of films and documentaries, and the voice of the WWE Authority, Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, was back there. And during, I'm not going to say which wrestler, but during a promo, the promo was supposed to be an impassioned promo for a babyface, talking about how he was going to get his essentially revenge on the people that hurt him, put him out of the match. And 2 minutes into or I guess like 20 seconds into the promo, Pierce just yells out, "What the F is this?" And he didn't use a kind word. And basically rationale that the promo did very little to make the babyface over. And if anything, made them more dislikable and more hateable. And basically said, you're cutting a heel promo as a babyface. And that's just not going to work. And I sat back.
One?
What's that?
Was this the whiny one?
Yes.
Okay. I know what you're talking about then. Yeah.
And when I saw that segment and then they redid it, and it was much, much better. And what I'm saying is, like, look, sometimes people are capable of doing what you need them to do, but they need a little bit more direction. They need a little bit more production. They need a little bit more work. In this moment, Melina could have gone in many different directions. This is the one they chose, and I can't believe that this was the best outcome. If someone would have pulled her inside and said, okay, great, look, we like the positiveness, but let's focus that energy and how are you going to get that match back? How are you going to get that title shot? They didn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a similar story with Jim Ross talks about the first time that Jim Cornette came to Mid-South. A lot of people don't realize this at the time, but Bill Watts is the one that put Cornette, Bobby Eaton, and Dennis Condrey together.
Okay.
And he had asked them, and he told them, he goes, I'm putting you guys together. Cornette's going to be the manager. Eaton and Condrey, you're going to be the tag team. He goes, you guys have a name or something like that? And Dennis Condrey said something. He goes, well, I was part of a team called the Midnight Express, in Mid-South, which was a 3-member team. And Watts goes, perfect, whatever. And so he brings Cornette in early on the day that they're filming promos. He tells Cornette, he goes, all right, he goes, I'm going to be bringing you guys in. He goes, I need you to talk about, who you guys are, who some of the competition is, and, what your plans are. And that was the direction for the promo. So Cornette came up in Memphis where Lawler and a lot of the guys, would mock, why can't I remember his name? Lamb. But the TV commentator there. And so he was, yes. And so he was talking to Jim Ross, and so he was mocking Jim Ross and, stuff like that, and talking and everything like that. And at the end of it, Watts said, well, congratulations. He goes, that was the drizzling shits. He goes, you just put over a match that's never going to happen. I'm never going to book one of my managers against my ring announcer. He goes, so this is what I need you to do. I need you to talk about who you guys are, why you're coming, and some of the teams here in the area. And, like Jim Ross said, Cornette had about 10 seconds to pull it together and reshoot the thing. And he did, and he did it flawlessly the second time. And I don't know who's producing these segments back there. I don't know who's talking about it. But on some of these things, they need to go, cut. This is what I need from that was the drizzling shits, and this is what I need from you.
And to make matters worse, this wasn't like in front of the audience, right? Like you didn't need the audience to react a certain way. This was done backstage.
Exactly. That's what. When it's up front at the podium, I see you can't start over. You get what you get.
But like even our pal Dave
I mean,
Scooby,
and you can, but you probably shouldn't at that
point.
Well,
our pal Dave Scooby brings up, like, during the Strictly Business promo, Latimer seemed to forget Doug Williams' name, right? And I saw that too and thought, well, you don't remember Doug? He said Fart, old man Fart Williams. It took him a minute to get there, but they could have easily cut that and panned to the audience for a minute and then went right back to Latimer putting down Doug Williams when he, got that name. Simple little edit could have changed the whole thing.
It just would have come across better.
Yeah.
And so, well, speaking of conversations and podiums, because this is professional wrestling, so, we've had one wrestling match, but only 5 promo segments, so we need a 6th one.
That's right.
And so they bring out the end, which I was very proud to learn that Otisson can talk.
Yeah.
And even has a good sounding voice.
Yeah.
So they're talking and how they want a rematch for the tag team title, and which would be great if they hadn't been beat, clean in the middle of the ring. But they want a rematch, but they can't get one, even though they're like, one of the top tag teams in the area. Of course, they can't get a rematch. And so Paro said something very confusing to me, and I actually asked about it on the This Is Pro Wrestling Discord. But he said something about a new division or a new 6-man division or whatever. And so they went out to find the biggest guy they could find, and they brought in Jack Stain, or Jack Stain came out, announced him and things like this. And so, as soon as I hear new division, I get naturally scared. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what's this new division, because, back at the 73rd, Austin Idol brought out one 6-man tag team belt and made it sound like his guys were the 6-man tag team champions, or he was going to declare them the 6-man tag team champions, kind of like the Russians did originally in Crockett Promotions. They just declared themselves the world 6-man tag team champions, and then at some point it became a legitimate title. So I don't know if they're planning to bring back the title. God, I hope not. And when I asked about it on Discord, I was basically told that they think it's going to be like another championship series type thing. Although Jack Stain came in and acknowledged that, he still has a thing he can cash in, despite the fact that he lost it. They forgot about that. And so this left me more confused than anything, but I guess they're now I don't know if Dane's officially a member of the End, because he just beat up his last tag team partner, so this is naturally the guy I want to bring into team with.
Well, I think the other point to this is you got a guy who literally ended his last tag team because he wanted to pursue singles. At least that's kind of the storyline that I felt, that he felt like he was carrying the weight for Crimson and didn't want to carry Crimson's weight anymore. So went on to go after, bigger stakes, if you will. Although he hasn't had that shot at Murdoch or really any championship yet in the NWA, It just putting a big guy with some other big guys just to do it. Okay.
Dave Scooby says not sure belts will be involved, but they did a few matches with trios teams. Good action live. We'll see how it looks on TV. So, all right. That sounds like we have something we can look forward to, hopefully.
And the thing is, right, I think you would agree with me, DK. Maybe you won't, but if you can make a division competitive and have exciting matches, then yeah, I think we're all for it. I don't necessarily say we don't need a 6-man tag, but like you barely have enough tag teams to field an actual tag team division. You barely have enough members of the roster to supply decent challenges for the 10 pounds of gold. We're messing up in the simple spots that could easily, if you're going to have effort and energy, use that towards making the TV title better, or making the national title better, or putting those resources to the tag team titles, or the new junior heavyweight division that you just announced literally like weeks ago. Let's do that. Let's get those things right, and then do the 6-man trios later.
Well, let's look at the 2 main U.S. promotions that had 6-man tag team titles.
Ring of Honor?
No, I'm talking past.
Okay.
So we had Jim Crockett Promotions.
Right.
Which the Russians declared themselves 6-man tag team champions. Actually, the Russians declared themselves with Don Kernoodle 6-man tag team champions, and then when they turned on him and brought in Crusher, Khrushchev, or whoever they brought in, then they were the 6-man tag team champions.
A Repo Man.
Yeah. And those titles were rarely, if ever, defended. They lost them to the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes because that gave the Road Warriors belts that they could wear and not have to win the World Tag Team Championship. And they rarely, if ever, defended the titles. They finally did put together another team. Was it Ivan Koloff and the Powers of Pain? It was Powers of Pain and another wrestler. I think it was Ivan.
Yeah.
So that's the only time that the titles changed hands in a 6-man tag team match. Because the titles were so prestigious that the Powers of Pain left for WWE. The titles were declared vacant. And so at the time, Ric Flair was World Heavyweight Champion. Arn and Tully were World Tag Team Champions. And they faced the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes for the vacant titles, with the Road Warriors and Rhodes winning again. The only other time it was of any major storyline was when the Road Warriors turned heel, turned on Dusty. Animal and Dusty had a match to determine who would get to have control over the titles. So Animal won, and I think it was Tenaru or something, from Japan, that they chose as their partner. I think they defended the belts once with him. And then, of course, they disappeared because nobody cared.
I went to Cage Match real quick to look at the history. It was Don Kernoodle and the Russians, which was Ivan and Nikita. They ditched Don Kernoodle for Crusher Khrushchev. Sorry if I'm just butchering the names. Then we had a title change between Dusty and the Road Warriors. Then Ivan Koloff and the Powers of Pain.
But we don't even know if that was actually a match. The Road Warriors, seriously, the Road Warriors and Dusty showed up as champions, but they never showed a video of the match.
Yeah, okay, you're right. And as I'm looking here, then it says they defended the titles once, and it wasn't even Dusty in the ring. It was Sting, and it was Sting and the Road Warriors versus the Varsity Club of Kevin Sullivan, Mike Rotundo, and Rick Steiner. And then Road Warrior Animal versus Dusty Rhodes to decide who the new 6-man tag champions would be.
So in there, the only purpose of those belts was to basically give a team a claim to a world title, so they didn't necessarily need another world title. And that was about it. Now, the other place that had them where they actually used them and defended them was, of course, World Class, as that was the center point of the Von Erich Freebird feud. And it was actually great for other talent in World Class because it got the Von Erichs out of the other titles.
Yeah, okay.
Because basically, you know, David was Texas champion, Kevin was American champion, and then whoever they would lose the title to and, you know, take a break from it and then come back and win it again. So, you know, the title changed hands primarily between those two teams and whatever combinations. And oddly, there were several times the title changed hands where a person who was the winner on the team wasn't actually a member of the championship team. You know, he was substituting for someone else. David Von Erich filled in for Buddy Roberts on the first one, gave up the title, and then his version of the title so that Buddy could hold it. And then that was followed by the famous Christmas cage match between Flair, Kerry, and Michael Hayes as the fan-voted enforcer. I'll remember how that ends. And if you don't, all too bad for you. And then after that feud went somewhere, they had Gino Hernandez and
Chris Adams
and Jake Roberts hold it. And then
could you imagine those promos? Man, I kind of wish I would watch World Class when I was a kid.
you can find it on Peacock. And then it kind of just went between different combinations of Von Erichs and friends and Freebird teams, and you know, I think the last ones to hold it were Michael Hayes, Kerry, and Kevin Von Erich when they beat Buddy Roberts, Terry Gordy, and Iceman King Parsons. They won the belts and they were never seen again. And so that ROH has had their 6-man tag team championship.
But it was basically the same thing you just mentioned about Jim Crockett Promotions, because they had the titles, but rarely did you see them defended. And it almost felt like it was just a purpose to put gold on somebody to make it look better.
Yeah, I mean, one of the early title or set of champions were I can't remember his name. He had the boys.
Dalton Castle.
Dalton Castle. Yes. And, you know, the Tate boys, and the Tate boys were nothing but jokes in ROH. So it was basically Dalton Castle was the world 6-man tag team champions. And I don't know. They are not necessary titles unless you have a Von Erich Freebird feud or something in that thing. And if you don't have that, you don't need the titles.
Just a rundown of former Ring of Honor tag team champions, because it looks fun. The Kingdom, which was Matt Taven, TK O'Ryan, and Vinny Marcel. I'm not going to try that. Bully Ray and the Briscoes. Dalton Castle and the Boys. The Bullet Club, which was Hangman Page and the Young Bucks. SoCal Uncensored. Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky. The Kingdom won the titles for a second time. The Bullet Club with Cody replacing Hangman Page for the second Bullet Club win. Kingdom won them for a third time. Then the Villains Enterprise. Then the Mexa Squad, which was Bandito, Flamita, and Rey Horas. Then Shane Taylor Promotions, and of course the last 6-man tag champions who won them at the final battle would be The Righteous, which was Bateman, Dutch, and Vincent, formerly of the Kingdom. So,
yeah, there were titles created for the Kingdom. You know, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah,
and you know, they've kind of kept them going. And if we're lucky, if we are lucky, they'll disappear during this new ROH. So now that we've
spent about 20 minutes not talking about
not talking about the show
Power.
because it's better, we'll talk about the fact that there was an talk about titles that we don't know if they're needed or not. Let's talk about the NWA Women's World Tag Team Championship.
Now, you say this all the time, and I don't mean to jump ahead of you, but in a vacuum, this match was pretty good.
Yes. How'd you know I was getting ready to say that?
Because we practically share the same brain. This was a pretty good match. I'll let you talk about it.
Well, I mean, I think you just nailed it. In a vacuum, you have 4 talented women doing good things in the ring, good moves. The story of the match was kind of Mickie James being the one totally in control of her team. I don't really have complaints about the match itself. I'll even say that James and Hogan semi made sense as a tag team.
I thought they did a good job.
But I mean, just if you're going to put a tag team together to challenge, I mean, Kiera Hogan's looked up to Mickie James since she was a little girl, and I don't know what they're trying to say there. But so she's teaming with her idol, blah blah blah. They put on a good match. Hogan gets beat. All of a sudden, Camille and
Latimer
are out there laughing at James because her team lost, even though she wasn't the one that took the pinfall. And they weren't otherwise involved in the match, which probably would have made more sense because after the match, now Kiera Hogan was pissed off, but I'm not 100% sure what at. I don't know if
I kind of understand why she was upset. If we want to jump to it,
yeah, go ahead.
Because Mickie was directing traffic the entire match. Like, she literally was coaching in the ring, and normally that's pretty cool if your idol is telling you what to do in a match. However, let's not take Kiera Hogan for granted. She's a former Impact's tag team champion. Highly touted as one of the hottest free agents and women wrestlers. For her to take a back seat and let Mickie direct traffic, who, as far as I know, has never won tag team titles, she kind of came off as a little perplexed, a little upset. Hey, Mickie, you told me to go to the top and it backfired. You told me to do that. And again, let's be honest, the Kiera Hogan in the NWA has constantly been nagging and blaming everyone else for her problems. She gets very emotional post-match. She's had now 3 matches in the NWA where she got very emotional afterwards and, talked to Gary Horn or This Is Pro Wrestling guys or even the NWA announcers and stuff. She gets very emotional after her matches, but it seems like in this particular situation, she took out the loss on Mickie James because Mickie told her to go to the top. And it's kind of like maybe kind of like a mirroring of the fantasies mirroring the reality, where a lot of times the wrestlers are being told what to do in the back. They don't necessarily agree with it, and then they do it, and then they don't go over.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've kind of been waiting for this split because anytime someone beats you twice and we're all loves and hugs and kisses afterwards, we kind of know what's happening. So, I mean, I wasn't surprised in that sense. I just wasn't 100% sure what the deal was. And I was probably a little bit distracted by when Camille came out there. And so, I mean, to me, it would have made more sense if Camille had grabbed Mickie James' leg, keeping her to get in from saving Kiera Hogan.
Yeah.
Then it was kind of that. But again, we'll say it, in isolation, the match was a good match. One of the better matches they've had, certainly one of the best women's tag team matches they've had.
Mickey looked good. Kiera Hogan looked good. Of course, Allison Kay still looks great. Marty Bell looks great. It was a very good match. I was happy to watch it. The ending was a little weird. And I think to what you were pointing out, had Camille gotten involved physically, would have made a lot of sense if she was the reason that they lost. If she distracted Mickey by grabbing her foot and allowing Kiera to be double teamed, because that also sets up a greater storyline as well. Because at some point, either Mickie James is going to leave the NWA, or she has to challenge for the Burke, because right now she's a knockouts world champion in Impact, but that has zero bearing on what happens in the NWA. And if she's the best women's wrestler, she should be fighting the champion. I mean, that should be what all champions want. They should all want the belts. They should all want to be the top. So that would have at least got the ball rolling towards a showdown down the road. Without the contact, it just kind of missed the mark, I would say.
All right. So now, we've had 2 matches, 6 promos. So guess what time it is?
More promos.
4 promos. And the first one is the promo that wasn't. I didn't get this. I didn't understand it. Mae Valentine is interviewing Nella Markova, who I'd actually liked when I'd seen her at the pay-per-view. And she asked her a question, which Markova basically doesn't answer, and kind of talks about herself and her modeling and her whatever. And then Mae, as she's prone to do, and ask her what normal people would do, and go, "Well, you didn't really answer my question." Marco was like, "You think you're better than me?" Well, I never said that. And she walks off, and I'm thinking to myself, "Well, that got her over, didn't it?" Hey, DKM, you want to buy a ticket now that you've seen her not do an interview and walk off? No. Can't say that made me want to part with my money. Oh, gee, we're surprised. We thought you would love that, and that you'd be running to the box office to get a ticket.
Box office, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, back in the old days when they were going to do returns to that town, you bought tickets for the next show at the box office there on site.
Before Ticketmaster and Eventbrite.
Exactly. So, Jay, what did you think of this promo that wasn't?
I mean, you kind of basically said what I was thinking. Markova, I kind of want to like her. I kind of like the idea of her. I like Taryn Terrell better, and it seems like it's the same thing. Maybe the Russian dichotomy, maybe she doesn't follow American customs. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. It doesn't sell us on a ticket. It doesn't make me want to see anything more with her. Unless she comes out next week with a very a vendetta against anyone who thinks that they're better than her. So far, just at the very least, I'm willing to see where this can go because she's a new talent in the NWA. Maybe it leads to her forming a tag team. Maybe it leads to her challenging Mae to a fight. I don't know, but as of right now,
she's the one we gave the history on what her background is and titles she currently holds, titles she's held in the past. She would, and the fact that her and Camille have actually faced each other a few times.
Sure.
And so you have a ready-made story.
Mm-hmm.
You have something that you could talk about. You have something that you could build up. Something you could, here's an interesting word now, promote. Something that could say, "Ooh, man, take my money, take my money. And instead, I'm wondering, is May Valentine going to start wrestling? Are those two going to get to a feud? I don't know. But whatever it was didn't make me interested. So we've talked about it longer than it happened. So let's move on to Idol Mania Sports Management, where our good friend Austin Idol used 5 billion words to say something to the effect of, here, a short guy, I got you a present, and it's a name tag, and nobody can read it because the lettering's so small. So I don't know why G's couldn't read it. He was too emotional. If he's illiterate, I don't know. But it went to Tyrus, who couldn't read it, and who said a lot of words before you finally heard junior executive. And then G's declares that in his church money or money church or whatever he calls it. Church's money. Because that goes right with like G's, I guess. I don't know. And it was now working in conjunction with Idol Mania Sports Management. And so, despite the fact apparently this was a surprise gift, he's already gone out and signed a talent. And the talent he's gone out and signed is All Day Marche Rocket, who comes out, hugs Tyrus, and doesn't say a word. G says he has what was a breaking news or a big announcement. And, and he's going to tell us what it is and then tells us nothing. I guess we have to find out next week, which I assume it was something like Rocket was like Sion's probably have to face Rocket, since that's what they're talking about, before he can get another shot at Tyrus. Because if there's any match that I really want a rematch to see, it's that one. And so, once again, have you talked Devin out of his money? Once again, you haven't.
There's an expression that I've heard before, and it's, I know I'm guilty of this, and I'm a long-winded person. I like to give you a whole story in as many words as I possibly can, because that's just how I like telling a story. But if you're on a television show, you don't have that much time. In fact, people have sometimes accused me of not being very intellectually smart, and that's why I use so many words instead of just getting to the direct point. I feel the very same way with Austin Idol. He uses a million words because he's trying to hide that he's not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed. With that being said, I do like this move. Marche has been basically vanilla. There's no spice there. There's nothing. You almost saw something kind of brewing with him and Slice Boogie when he was still an active member of the NWA. I think with Austin Sports Management, whatever they want to call it, they need more members. And I think if this trio title is a real thing that's coming down the road, or just having Marche and Jordan Clearwater as a regular tag team, or just having more of this, I don't know. I just feel like this is a good direction for Marche, because they really haven't done a whole lot with them as it is. And I don't know. I don't hate the move, and hopefully it puts some heat on Marche, gives him a clearly specified role, and now you can expect him to be basically what Jordan Clearwater is, basically what Black Jesus has done, basically what Sion did as part of this group. He's going to be an enhancement type talent, nothing more. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
My only problem if Marche Rocket and you said, "Hey, we want to put you in with this group," I go, "You're not going to treat me the way you're treating Clearwater, are you? Because if you are, I'll just stay where I am."
I don't know. Clearwater. First of all, Matthew Underwood zinged me there because he said, "Hey, Jay, vanilla is a spice." I told you, I use a lot of words. I'm not necessarily the smartest guy. Secondly, you're right. I like Jordan Clearwater a lot. I like the character that's starting to come out of him more and more every week. I still would like to see more of him in the ring. I'd like to see more Clearwater wrestling. I'm sure he's very happy with cashing a paycheck every month or every week or whatever it is the pay scale is for the NWA. But at the end of the day, you're right. I don't feel like the NWA has done a whole lot with Clearwater, but they've kind of told you what he is at this point. He's a mid-card enhancement guy. He's going to win a match or two.
Comedy
He's going to lose. Yeah, very much a comedy guy. And Terry Mcdermott, who is the reigning and defending Jordan Clearwater #1 fan here, has said that he is upset with how Clearwater is being done in the NWA.
Well, then came one of the most confusing segments of the show that has had several confusing segments. So Billy Corgan comes out. And if Billy was scripted, you need to memorize your script better. If Billy was not scripted and was speaking off the cuff, Billy, write yourself a script. He stammered around saying he was taking heat for his decision to let Mike Knox come in, but that Mike Knox was there and he was in a sanctioned match and he was a sanctioned wrestler, and so was Cardona. And so, well, are you saying they're part of the NWA? No, they're not part of the NWA, but they're sanctioned. And so I have no idea what the hell any of that was supposed to mean. And so Billy Corgan standing by his decision to have a sanctioned wrestler be there who's not part of the organization. Okay, Billy.
I think, again, this might have been life imitating art because you have some guys.
Flashbacks of Vince on Raw.
Yeah, that too. But basically what you have with the NWA, there's a core group of people who've been there since day one. A lot of guys from the roster have been there since day one. Guys who we'll talk about in a minute, Mims has been there since day one. You've got guys who have been going through the ranks, maybe not have been there since day one, but have been there for a long time, like Marche Rocket, Jordan Clearwater, and then even further down the roster, you Trevor Murdoch's been there since day one. And how long did it take Trevor Murdoch to get a crack at the 10 pounds of gold? And then now you're bringing in new faces. And we had this conversation in Discord. You're seeing new faces come in and get a shot at the 10 pounds of gold. That's a little bit unsettling for guys who've been on the roster for so long because they're maybe afraid that they're losing that spot. So I don't know if this has anything to do with that. And this is just J-Cal forecasting. But I think this might have been a bit of art imitating life and Billy just, putting it out there. Hey, you know what? They're not NWA. They're not part of the family, but they'll be here as long as we can find a use for them. I don't know.
Well, look, people come and people go, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's normal. In fact, I tell you, one of the problems in WWE right now is, people are there, they're signed for years, you see them, and you're just kind of tired of them. They become bland to you. I mean, I remember liking Dolph Ziggler. Now I moan anytime he comes out. And, and again, I don't watch a lot of WWE. I tape them. This is literally the truth. Literally the truth, people. I tape Raw and SmackDown and NXT, and I listen to a daily YouTube group channel called Wrestle Talk, and they'll give the reviews. And they're pretty pro AEW and pretty anti WWE, but then again, who watches WWE isn't anti WWE. And basically, if they say about anything interesting that happened on the show, I will go back and I'll watch that part of it. And otherwise, pretty much ignore the show. And there are times that I just delete it without ever watching a bit. I do record AEW now because there's only about 2 people I want to see, maybe 3. So I'll watch those segments. And other than that, I toss it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Right now, where it comes to NWA, I don't mind them bringing people in, new people in. But, tell me who they are, tell me why they're there. What's sad? We can go, oh, Cardona, people know him from the WWE. No, people know Zack Ryder from WWE. And trust me, most WWE fans, if they heard the name Matt Cardona is going to be in X place, it would not mean a damn thing to them. Because it's only the people who are already going to watch this crap no matter what who care. And so he comes out, Corgan rambles on about this. I was left more confused than I was before. And so then, since they're sanctioned, out come Cardona and Knox, and Cardona made me want to go to sleep. Knox, I didn't care about. Obviously, they're setting Knox up to face Pope whenever Pope comes back. That was probably the original plan, was to put Cardona in with Murdoch and then move Knox over to a fight with Pope. In fact, at one time, the announcer, I don't remember if it was Galley or Storm, but one of them incorrectly said that Knox was the one that put Pope out, that injured him by throwing him into the step.
Yeah.
And so, obviously that's the thing they're going with. Mike Knox talked about how he was going to issue an open challenge. He was going to go into the ring. Nobody was going to accept it. The referee was going to count 10 and raise his hand, although if you don't have an opponent, I don't know how you win by count out, but hey, don't try to be logical. So Knox goes out there and talking, and then finally out comes Mims. Mims talks, and his first promo, or first real promo or something like that.
Yeah.
He goes out and he talks and he talks and he talks, and some of it was impassioned, most of it wasn't. And he talked longer than the match that was getting ready to take place, which was the 3rd match. And by the way, this was the 5th talking segment in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets in there, gets a couple of offensive moves in on Knox a couple of different times. Otherwise, it was primarily Knox beating him up and winning. So, thank you for coming, Mims. You can join Lady Frost and Tootie Lynn, or whatever her name is people who we like to bring in and build up as somebody important, but we're never actually going to give you any big victories that last. And sure, he beat Jack Stane, but then he lost right away to Jack Stane and got beat up in that match. So I don't get how they're using him. I don't understand why they're using him the way they are. He's young. He's green. He should work some veterans, but if you're going to build him up as somebody, again, start putting him in there with, other enhancement talent and giving him some wins. Let us get some momentum going. Let's see where he goes. He might be something. He might not, but at least, give the poor guy a chance. And so that was that. And, I wasted an hour of 8 minutes of my life. And there was one good match, one not bad match, and one match that when push came to shove, didn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
And there was 11 talking segments. 3 matches, 11 talking segments. It's like they haven't learned an effing thing. Every time I think they have, they go to prove me wrong. And so I didn't like the match, or I didn't like the show. Don't want to see another show like it.
Again, I think you hit the nail right on the head. When it comes to the show, yes, we do need promos to go with the wrestling, but I feel like this was an excessive promo show. This is what NWA Power Surge used to be, except for it went very, very, very long. And I think it would behoove the NWA to tighten up the ship, tighten up these promos, tighten up the booking, and let your stars become stars. If Mims wins on Tuesday night, maybe we're talking about Mims getting a victory over a former WWE guy. But it's hard to try to figure out where they want to go with this, right? Because you've got a guy on the roster. You've got 2 guys who aren't on the roster but are sanctioned. So if you have these guys, obviously they're going to protect them because the win is going to go for the Pope. The Pope is going to benefit from Mike Knox and Murdoch. Trevor Murdoch is going to benefit from Matt Cardona. I think that's the plan, but don't use your guy who is generating babyface resolve and future star potential. This didn't have to be Mims in this role. This could have been almost anybody else on the roster. It could have been Crimson, right? It could have been Crimson. Hey, you took out my big buddy, and now I'm going to take you out. I think if you want Mims to be your future, you got to start protecting Mims, and he needs to be pushed in a way that's going to, like you said, put him in matches against Jordan Clearwater, put him in matches against Marche Rocket, put him in matches where they can be meaningful and he can win. That's how he's going to develop more of a star power than putting him in the ring with Mike Knox. Unless the plan is at some point he's going to come get that win back from Mike Knox. You just kind of poo-pooed on his momentum. That's 2 losses in a row now on Power. He lost to Jack Stain the first episode and loses to Mike Knox on episode 2.
And even if you wanted to use Mims, you could still use him. He could still lose. But there are ways, we've seen it even in the NWA, where, sure, one guy lost, but, he came out looking better. If he had taken Knox to the limit, if he had tried anything, and look, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here. I was a little bit bothered by the fact that one of the things that they did was kind of an old wrestling stereotype with African Americans with the headbutt. Because Mike Knox did the headbutt and didn't work. And then, Mims used it successfully. And I kind of thought those days were behind us. But skipping over that, why couldn't Mims have had good, tight, competitive match where even though he still lost, he was protected in that, hey, he wasn't planning on facing him. It wasn't on the thing. He came out to stand up for a friend. He gave it all he had. He nearly took the match, and he just came up a little bit short.
This close, Mike Knox. This close to being beaten by Mims. That should have been the way they went.
And then you can do like we were talking about, where you start putting him in with, other guys on his level and start getting him some wins and start building him up. And then you can put him in with Tyrus and he can go to the 605 time limit. He doesn't have to win the title, but he can, he can survive the match. And, look, none of us are expert bookers, and yet sometimes I swear we can come up with better ideas than the crap they put on. So, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to wrap up the show with?
No. I mean, let's face it. This wasn't the best outing. Of course, the bull crap that they fed us with Judeus and James Mitchell and Salvatore Renaro. It just didn't do it for me. I wasn't into it. Real quick, Certified Hustler says, Jay, are you in a hospital gown? No, man, I'm wearing a beanie. It's a t-shirt. I'm out in Colorado. It's cold. I'm trying to stay warm.
Hey, everybody give Jay props because he's on a family vacation. He still took time out to do both his pre-party and this show. So
bigger props
all you people, give him his props. Like, subscribe. We got the same 5 people liking, and there's more of you in the chat than that. So come on. Like, subscribe. Chance to win a belt later.
I mean, we're only 170 subscribers away from that 1,000 mark. And when we hit that, I'm telling you guys, one of you is going to win a replica championship of the crown title. I think that's so awesome. And that's our good buddy, NWA Gold. You should definitely check him out. We are wrapping things up. I do appreciate you guys being here. Props to my wife, because not only is she gorgeous, but she took the kids out of the room and let me be private with you guys for 2 hours or 3 hours, I guess. So thanks to you, honey. And to you guys, I do appreciate you guys being here. Of course, we'll be back on Tuesday for the pre-party. And of course, stay tuned to NWA. What? To stay tuned for NWA news and information, check out alliance-wrestling.com. DK, how can they follow you on the socials if they choose to do so?
Well, the only social that deals with wrestling, which includes amateur wrestling from time to time, go Nebraska. Twitter at DKMFWTX. And for free, you'll get some of my political views.
That'll do it for us, guys. Until next time, we are the Alliance. Thanks again for tuning in to the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you won't miss any future episodes? We'd also like to remind you that we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube at the Alliance Blog. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitch at the Alliance Blog. Remember, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.